Well, we're back here at the system with Lee. He's been kind of doing the burn-in thing while you're getting used to the system a little bit. So tell us a little bit about what's been going on so far.
Well, we essentially went off the grid Friday the 13th. About 7 o'clock, we charged the batteries up to 100%, and essentially from that point on, set the reserve down to 0. Mm-hmm. And since then, we've haven't really drawn any power off the grid up until I guess it was last night when we had this storm watch come in, mm-hmm. which was kind of interesting. But for the last week or so, even though we were gone part of the time in that monitoring in that, we weren't using a lot of power in the house, but the batteries stayed charged. At night they would, by morning or so when we were starting to charge again, they'd get down to maybe 75% or so. Okay. But usually by noon they were at 100%, and we were strictly on the grid. Off the grid, either feeding the house or putting power back to the grid. Yeah. And we had some pretty good production days. There were some of the days we were putting more than 25 kilowatts back onto the grid, mm-hmm. and plus providing for all of our other usage that we needed. Then the other night here, the storm watch came on. The batteries were down about 82%, and I had the storm watch turned on. I hadn't realized exactly what that meant. And I was under the impression you couldn't draw power off of the grid to charge batteries.
No, normally you can't. And so what Lee's talking about is that there's a setting on the Powerwall, again, called Storm Watch. And what that does is it's designed to do a similar thing that Tesla does with their vehicles. If they know that there's a hurricane coming into an area, you've often heard about that Tesla will unlock the batteries. If you have a Tesla vehicle that has one of the smaller batteries, the chances are good that that car actually has a larger battery in it, but they have software limited the battery. Well, he doesn't want to be responsible for somebody getting caught in a storm, so then they will send a quick software update to the car to free up that extra battery range so that people can get out of Dodge. Well, they do a similar thing with the Powerwalls. Now, early on we've discussed that the Powerwalls aren't normally in North America. They're not capable of charging off of the grid like they are in Europe and Australia. And so as a counter to that, Tesla has set it up so that if you have a problem that's coming in your area, a hurricane, storm, what have you, that they will then allow the system to charge to 100% whenever it's got available power, whether that's from the solar or from the grid power. Now in this case, this is all due to those fires that we had last year, a year and a half ago, where PG&E, they had some issues with lines that they hadn't cleared, and so then in high wind situations that the fire had started because it had blown some foliage, some trees against the lines. Well, now what they're doing is that let's just say that they're in an abundance of caution. They're telling some of their customers that they're going to shut the power off. Well, Tesla's been Johnny on the spot with that. It's like, oh, well, if you're going to be shutting the power off to these people, then we're going to go ahead and initiate the storm watch to allow the batteries to charge up for that. And that's what's gone on here. And so it operates in a very similar way to if you had set your reserve to 100%. The only difference then is obviously that it charges the battery from the grid, and any excess from solar winds up going back out to the grid, but it keeps your batteries topped off for when that event occurs. So that's a good thing. But that led to some little interesting issues when we just did a test, didn't it?
Yes. So we tried. What happened was I was at 82%. Stormwatch came on, or actually the first thing I saw was that I was drawing about 6 kilowatts off the grid. And it was dark, and we weren't running that much in the house. And in a matter of less than an hour, it charged the battery up to 100%, and then it kind of
left it there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so this morning, we tried turning the grid off, turning the main breaker off, and just to see how the system would react to that. And of course, it immediately went over. The batteries are at 100%, and it started drawing off the batteries, and things weren't working quite right until it got down a little bit, down to about 95%, and then the solar kicked in and was able to charge the power and that kind of stuff. But we were seeing some
mayhem.
well, we were seeing flickering in lights. And the one of the interesting things was the oven. The oven and the microwave said it just had an error, even though the power was there. It would not run. And anyway, you think it may have been something to do with.
So the interesting, I was telling Lee that just yesterday, day before yesterday, I was working with Tomas and his system, and his. He was excited. The storm watch came on for him as well, and so this is the first time that any of us have actually been able to see that in operation, because we don't live where there's hurricanes and tornadoes and that kinds of a thing, and so it was going to be a very uncommon thing that we would ever see storm watch, we thought. And so Tomas saw that and he got all excited. Now on Tomas's system, just like the Energy Sovereignty Project system, he's got 4 batteries. And so he's looking at that thing and it's drawing like 8 kilowatts from the grid, right? And so he was happy to see that it all worked, but at some point he's like, no, I think we're going to go ahead and turn this off now. And so he did the exact same thing, where he turned his grid power off, and he too was at a high enough state of charge in his batteries that it also did the same thing that it does here. Now, we've discussed before that if your batteries are at 100% and you turn your main power off, your grid power off, if solar is still producing, there's no place to put the power. And so then what happens is that the Tesla batteries lower their frequency, and it's no longer 60 hertz, it's 57 hertz, so somewhere around there, 56 hertz, right? Now what that does is it kicks off the inverters, and then that makes it so that it doesn't have that extra power to deal with. But in doing so, Lee and I have been talking a little bit about what might have been going on, and in doing that, the frequency fault here, we think it's been picked up by this box here, which is designed to be a power sweetener. Well, this thing is designed to keep things at 60 hertz. Now, I don't know whether it does that through computerized mechanism or what, but all of a sudden here, the lights are flickering and the UPS is not responding. It's seeing some weirdness going on in the power, and so it wants to protect the computer. And so then it trips itself off. The ovens, I'm sure, had the exact same kind of power protection mode. And so they're like, oh, nope. and so we thought that was probably the case. And so then what we did was we turned on some of the loads that are obviously not affected too much by that. We were very careful because, again, each of these only produces 5 kilowatts. And so we had to be careful not to bring it up past that point and trip the system off. So we turned on the circulating fan at first, and a dryer, some other loads to try and bring that power consumption up, and did. And so then we wound up bringing the system down to, I don't know, 97 or so, something like that. And then
it got down to 96%.
96. And so then all of a sudden, flickering went away, ovens responded, UPS kicked back on, and so. That's just one of the teething pains of bringing up a new system, right? And so we've got to call out to the SunWorks folks, and so then they're going to come through and take a look at that. And so I guess we'll go ahead and reconvene in a few days and see. That's sure something that they'll be very easy to figure that out. And so the only thing that I'm personally going to be watching over very closely is that is this the result of some software change on Tesla parts? That's the only issue that I might have that we could have a potential problem with moving forward. But other than that, I think it's the sweetener. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.